All right, my name is Micah. I am the lead animator and programmer for Project Void. What I have here on the screen, this is Project Void version 0.5. This is going to be the next version that we'll be releasing here. And within this version, we are actually looking at a brand new map called Cargo. This map was designed as a way to kind of give us more of an outdoor area to play in, and you'll notice that actually a lot of this is pretty well polished at this stage. This is actually now our most polished map, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit here. But one of the reasons is we actually ended up deciding that from our old version, which was version 0.40, we actually decided to take the code and restart from scratch. Essentially, we were working off of the shooter game template here, and you can see everything in our code base here. There's a lot of shooter style prefixes, and those are all classes that were made from a completely different source that we were then layering on the Project Void game on top of. And you'll actually see some classes in here as well that are prefixed as hidden. Those were the initial project that was built on top of the shooter game project, and it was essentially just this kind of idea that get the game in, get it going, kind of get a feel for it, and the shooter game template really allowed the project to kind of get started. This was actually before I even joined the team here, but you can then see, in addition to that, these PV classes, and a lot of the PV classes were actually my code that I began starting to add, and you can see a lot of the stuff is actually fairly basic. There's not a ton. I was modifying kind of the layers that I already had. But ultimately, what we ended up deciding to do, and this was kind of something that I pushed the team for, was that we decided that we wanted to start over with the code and work on something that was just a nice fresh base. And the reason being is, as much as the shooter game template is actually pretty solid, it was built on a legacy version of the Unreal Engine, and I know that the original project was started quite a while back, before I actually merged in with it, and a lot of that stuff was really outdated, from the sense that the entire animation system was hard-coded references. Now there's an entire animation blueprint system that's actually very robust, and none of that was being utilized, which made animating very painful and very kind of antiquated even. So what we ended up doing here was I went, and for the past couple months after April here, from April into August, I was basically rebuilding what the shooter game template had, and creating a template that I could then know instantly what was wrong, or instantly what code was being called whenever we started running into issues, because our shooter game template version, which is this Project Void 0.40, really ran into a bunch of issues where I had to spend hours upon hours researching where this code was being called, just because it was really wasn't my code. I didn't know where any of the things were. So really I wanted to be able to focus on something. But on top of that, I was actually, when I created mine, so mine is called 0.50 because it's the first layer of a first person template that you would want. So this is actually designed to be used for any sort of template. So it's not just something that's meant to be just strictly deathmatch and team deathmatch, which is what the shooter game template was really built towards. It was kind of assuming that you were going to stay inside this box about what kind of game that you were going to be making. Project Void didn't really fit inside that because it was more asymmetric. There was one person playing an invisible creature, and then about 5 to 10 people playing the people who were trying to hunt the creature. So really I wanted to be able to just kind of build a system that allowed me to focus not on just this square, but something that was a little more robust. In addition to being able to actually know what the code was doing, because I actually built it from the ground up, kind of thing. So that is what all this is. You'll notice there's all these classes in here called 0.50, and in the old project, if you want to get into the nitty gritty, that was actually part of the source, right? So if you're familiar with how Unreal works in the C++ world, or the C++ world, really what it is the source is the framework or the module of the game, but you can actually do things in a better way, which is actually through that of plugins. So the 0.50 plugin is actually just a plugin, so I can just load it into the Unreal Engine for any project, and then start building my code base off of that. So we have our plugin here. There's my Firstify, and you'll see we have all kinds of classes, from animations to audios, utilities, gadgets, game info, gameplay, interactive system, an inventory management system, an objective system. Physics was actually never implemented. That's just the folder. Spawn manager, so allowing us to control how and when items spawn, and even players or characters. Weapons, and the world as well. So a little bit of manipulation on some of the just base classes like that. That was much more segmented. And then in addition to that, on the next layer, we then actually have the source code for Project Void. So this is just the Project Void game. And then we have literally our gameplay in here, our mutators, our players, our settings, and all these things are extending off of the Firstify plugin. So they're no longer me modifying shooter game template to do what we needed. We were actually now providing extensions, and the plugin itself is actually designed to be more robust, like I was saying. And what's really nice about this is that I no longer have to design a thing around something that was never intended to be, right? So I actually have our Firstify plugin. All of that is actually inside a separate project, and within that project I can just focus on just solidifying and stabilizing just the plugin itself, and then once an update's been made, I can then push that to the Project Void project itself, and then be able to then add into the new features. And so that's what brings us here today. So this is basically our Firstify plugin layered with the Project Void. We've probably improved quite a lot of things since the last version 4.0. There are some things that are also missing, so we'll be kind of detailing over what some of the things. So first thing I just kind of want to go over, I just wanted to show off the new map here. So we have this nice fancy new map called Cargo. Half of it's still in blockout phase, and the other half is starting to be polished. As you can see, we're kind of in an in-between stage right now, but there's all kinds of nice lighting, a lot more models. One of the things that we did with the old project is we had a lot of marketplace assets, and we really wanted to move away from that because we didn't want to have this kind of disconnected look. So in the old project, a lot of really nice looking assets, but this didn't quite 100% match up with another map. They were two different asset packs, and so they were close, but they never really had a consistent style. The characters as well, they were kind of nice, but these weapon models were from something completely different. The weapon models themselves actually weren't built to be animated in detail. They're just kind of a solid block. You can't really pull levers or triggers or see moving parts of the weapons. A lot of the internal parts weren't even remotely modeled, so they couldn't show anything off. They were just all solid piece. The weapons in here really were very static, and I kind of wanted, as an animator, to be able to actually see like those levers pulling back and stuff like that from the injection shells and all that kind of moving. It just adds a lot of atmosphere to it. In addition to that, the character models also, you can see they had some pre-built animations in them that we were using, and they were not often the best. So this guy's kind of holding the gun really, really weird. And to redo all the animations, I wanted to be able to do it right, not just kind of try and hot fix things that were already existing. And the best way to do that, honestly, was to start the project over in kind of a nice clean slate. So with that being said, we'll kind of jump in here. There's a couple nice things about this game. So if I go ahead and just launch our project here, you can see we're kind of at a nice blockout stage already. A lot of functionalities in, so you can actually come in here and you can select your weapons, and we're kind of in the middle of building that right now, so our icons aren't really there. You have a lobby system here, so we actually have my 3 players, and if I ready up at least 50%, it will start a countdown up here, you'll see, and then it'll begin the game. And then obviously if I ready up the last one, it'll jump right in. You also see that right off the bat that we have a system that tells you what team you're on now, which is just a quick visualization, so you don't really have to kind of look at your hands anymore or the weapon. And that actually comes into play because we actually have an additional game mode where there's actually 3 teams, and 2 of them are human players, and the third is the creature, which we'll be getting into. But I'm currently on the containment team, and you should be able to kind of see behind me if I move myself over just a little bit. But down at the bottom right, you can see our health is animating down there, and we can kind of move around. We got a nice little compass going here for the ability to call out directions now, saying, you know, creatures over in the northeast, for example. That'll kind of just help out and play a little bit. In addition to that, we kind of got most of our weapon functionality back, so I can actually aim, I can actually fire. Our effects do work occasionally. Not quite sure why they're not showing up here. I think it's just based on some of the services that we're hitting. Yeah, there we go. So there's some of them. They're just real basic. We haven't done anything with those yet. I actually added in proper shotgun reloading, which is why we're all starting with shotguns now. So if I hold down R, you'll see down at the bottom, it's starting to count 7, 6, 8, etc. Well, I guess 6, 7, 8. So all that's kind of built in now, which is nice. Before, it was kind of a hacked together way because it really didn't support it. In addition to that, you can actually switch over to your secondary weapon. There's a weird bug right now where the first time you switch over to your second weapon, it doesn't show you the actual model. But again, we have our model, and we can actually interact with some of the physics objects, which is nice. We're starting to get better physics in than we had in the old system. The animation is also driven by, or the code I should say, is driven by the animation. So whenever I'm going in here and I fire and I hit reload, it now waits for the animation to say I'm done, and then it sends code, the notification saying I've done reloaded. In the old project, the system really didn't have any sort of ability to link up with the animation itself. What you ended up doing is you actually had a timer, and that timer would then just say, you know, you'd have to put in, it's 3 seconds long, and then it would just count it down, and then after 3 seconds it would assume the animation finished. That was really painful because every time I tried to update the system and tried to shorten or increase the length of the animation, I'd have to go in there and refigure out what the animation length is and put it on in there. No longer have to do that. No, I just literally just re-import the animation, so that's really, really nice. In addition to that, we have the ability to come in here and interact with some of the things. So again, we're missing effects, we're adding all that in, but we can go in, redestroy eggs and all that kind of stuff. And I can restart or reload my weapon. I can switch between weapons. Got a couple different surface types in here, and that is more or less it. So pretty nice right here. And then if I switch over to the character playing the creature and I bring him down in front, so we have our shimmer effect. It might be a little hard to see on the video, but here's the creature right in front, and if I hold down the R key, I can actually reveal myself so you can actually see the creature. You'll actually be able to see that the creature's eyes begin to glow when they get super close, so there is a fall off range on them now. So this actually really helps with new players. It just gives something just minor to look for if you're having trouble looking for the shimmer, and we'll actually have customization to be able to turn this on and off in the server settings. So if you want to go towards a more hardcore game, it won't have to be there, but this is more of a beginner friendly way, because if I come in here and I attack, you'll actually be able to see the glowing eyes, whether you're invisible or not, which is pretty nice. You'll also see that if I'm looking here and I'm super close and I turn around, the eyes actually begin to disappear, so you actually can't see it if they are looking the opposite way of you, for example. So it's still like if you come in and you attack and move away, it's not like you're just instantly spotted. So it doesn't really take too much of a advantage away from the creature. You'll also notice that down at the bottom right we have a timer, so we've added a lot of audio cues to kind of increase the atmosphere and stuff. So at 30-second we actually got that buzzer sound. I was kind of talking over it, but that sound will begin to let you know that you have 30 seconds left. Now we have 10 seconds left, so now we kind of got our music. This is So a little bit of feedback there for you. You'll also see that I came in there and I became the creature, which is pretty cool. And it now told me that I am actually the creature. The creature gets to spawn in all kinds of different places, while the containment and our new team called the shadow team will actually be in designated spots, which we'll be getting into that here shortly. You'll see down at the bottom right, I have my stamina there. So if I jump, you'll see that it starts decreasing. And then the health is actually the number inside, along with the round timer. So I can come in. As the creature, I can actually jump and hold down and stick to surfaces, and we've added the new ability that if I press space, I'll start dropping, but then if I hit shift again, it'll actually grab on, which I apparently missed. Well, it was working. There might be something with that wall. Sort of works. Anyways, it does work. Anyways, probably have to fix something on that. In addition to that, I can hold down the V key and I can see my visualization, so I can actually see that there are players over here. And if I come over and I attack, you'll see he turns yellow because his health is now down and this guy is still green. And then I can actually attack, so now he's in a critical state. And then when I actually kill him, he still shows up in a black state. And if I go over here, you can actually see both those silhouettes show up through the walls. So that's pretty nice. So one of the advantages of seeing the dead body is that I'm actually able to feed off of it and regain health throughout the game. In addition to that, if I have somebody who is red and I'm looking through and I see maybe a couple green guys and then a red one, I know which one to pick out. So it kind of adds a little more intensity to being able to attack and target specific people, for example. You'll also notice we have nice new character models. They're just in a T-pose. The weapon attachment isn't finished yet. I actually have that all built inside the plugin and all that, but because I imported the new character, he doesn't have the socket set up yet, so that's pretty much why. So I'll have to add all that. But within the creature, or within the character modeling, you can see they're much more of an actual containment member now. They have sort of these containment suits, to like biohazard suits that we're kind of going for, and these are going to be kind of the new look for the containment members, rather than just sort of a random SWAT looking guy that we had from a marketplace asset before. So lots of new things, which are really, really nice. Weapon models, they're all actually completely new as well. I'll show you that here in just a minute. But those are actually 100% custom now, and I'm in the phase of texturing and polishing those as well. We have a lot of things that are modeled and blocked in, and now we just need to kind of do a polish pass at this point. If I end up killing them, you actually get victory and failure sounds now, so each one's different based on what team you're on. You can also hear that there's now intros as well, so along with the characters, we actually have based on what team you're on, and it played one for the containment team because my secondary screen is what takes mouse focus for whatever reason. But if I come in here and I click on containment and I have intros, we actually have introductions for each team, and it'll be randomized. This is my great voice acting with really bad filters thrown on. We have one for them, and then we have one for the creature, which the creature is just the taunt. And then we have our new team, which is actually the shadow team. And again, it's not meant to be final audio, but it works for what it is. If I come in here and I actually switch, you'll see that we have new game modes in here. So we have the hunt game mode. That's the traditional one where it's one team versus one creature. We have the mercenaries, which is actually 3 teams. So you have your containment team, you have your shadow team, and then you have your creature team. And all 3 teams are actually pitted against each other, and the goal is to be the last team standing. What makes this kind of fun is just a little bit of a chaos mode that's thrown in there. We just thought it would be kind of fun. But the mercenaries is basically the shadow team, and that shadow team's goal is to steal samples of the creature and bring it back, where the containment team's meant to eliminate it and burn it down kind of thing, purge the area. And then the creature's obviously just there to survive and eat people. And so what ends up happening is you have the containment and the shadow who can visibly see each other easily, constantly shooting at each other, and then you have a creature on top of that who will then jump through and actually try and pick out people as the game goes. So as the creature, you kind of wait a lot more, but it's a lot of fun because you're kind of watching 2 teams basically destroy each other, and then you try and intervene and take them out. But obviously it's much more high risk for the creature, so you want to be much smarter. So if I switch over to mercenaries and I have 3 people at least, it will go ahead and create 3 teams. Hopefully it does it on the first time here. Every now and again I just get this weird bug where it doesn't assign a shadow team. And get here, ready up. Perfect. Okay, so got a shadow team in here. So here I am as the containment team. You have your creature team right over here, and then you also have your shadow team over here. For some reason the gun's not showing again, just a couple bugs I need to iron out. But if I hold down the tab button, you can actually see that the shadow team now shows up, and there's actually 3 groups of characters in here. And so the goal is to be the last team standing. So as the containment, I can come over here and let me get to our shadow member over here. You can see our shadow members off in the distance, and again, just T-pose right now. None of the animations are in. That's going to be the next phase. You can see this guy here. Now, the model is really dark right now because it's just a base color that's been thrown down, so I'll bring them into here. We're going to be brightening them up so they're not so... they don't have too much of an advantage against the containment, who's just bright orange. But you can see in here we kind of got this character here, and they are a much more militaristic styled character, so they're going to be added in here as well. The blood all over his arms is because that was just the texture that I had just to see how the skin looked. It was just a random test that I threw on him. But again, like I said, a lot of this is just kind of block out, and I actually have ZBrush up that I can show the actual models, which is nice. But I can come in here and I can actually attack them. Ragdolling kind of goes crazy right now. So that eliminated that character, and then as the creature, if I bring him over, him up in front. If I destroy him, then I win the round. Otherwise, it's whatever team. So as the creature, your goal is to really try and wait and take him out. So a lot of fun with that. Outside of that, we did get gadgets back in, as you kind of saw. So if I switch back over here, and I throw down, so as the containment, if I bring this character over, I can actually throw gadgets down, and you can see I got a nice laser, and as somebody walks through, whether it's my own team or another team or the creature, it'll actually turn red, so you can actually easily see by looking which one. So if you have 2 or 3 set up like so, and somebody runs across one, you'll be able to see which one of those 2 is basically being affected, which is, again, a lot of fun. So especially if you set them up in the right way, then you kind of get this pathing of, you know, red, red, blue, red, you know, and you kind of know which area they go from. So that's nice. You have 3 of them to begin with, and you can set them up lower and higher, and so when the creature jumps through, you actually mark that right there, right, because the creature is jumping through, so you can kind of play a lot of strategies that way, which is fun. Outside of that, we have a lot of new models. So if I come into here and I go into our environment and I just filter down by static mesh, 90% of this is now custom. So all these models are pretty high detail, so we're no longer using marketplace assets. I've now been going in and modeling a lot of these things, and they're really nice because this just kind of adds a lot of fidelity and consistency to our system. We need to obviously texture a lot more of these things than we have, but there are quite a bit of nice models in here. Some of the textures are just first passes. We'll be kind of, you know, bringing everything together in a more consistent pass once we're at that polish stage again for the props and stuff like that. But we have a lot more in here. You can see there's all kinds of models within the system. Pretty high detail, so things like these, we actually have some valves modeled out. They're not just like little cylinders sticking out. There's actual detail in them. All kinds of things like that, and we'll be making them more interactive as we go through. And you can see there's just all kinds of new models, which is going to be really nice for the next update. In addition to that, we do have our gadgets. Right now, we really just have the whistleblower. This is pretty much just our system here. This is that tripwire that you saw before. We kind of built that as a nice separate system, so that's nice. We do have those multiple game modes now, so we have the ability to switch out game modes within the system, which again, so Hunt is your classic, Mercenaries is adding the Shadow team, and then Team Deathmatch is actually removing the Creature team. And there's actually some customization built into that, so if I launch the game regularly rather than through the engine editor, it'll bring me to our new main menu. And if I go over into our create game section, I can actually come in here and say game mode, and you'll actually see there's actually some settings in here that I can slide around. These are basically considered mutators, and these mutators are basically going to be modifications for how the game wants. So for example, our mercenaries, you can say I want to have at least 2 creatures, or I want to have an additional 1 creature, I guess is the way we're phrasing it. But I want to have an additional one, so when it starts generating the teams, it's no longer just 1 creature and then everybody else divvied up between Shadow and Containment. It actually will add the ability to have 2 creatures, and again, it just lets you modify how the game is being made, and we're going to be making a bunch of those. And they change based on which actual system you have. You can see Team Deathmatch doesn't have any mutators right now, but Mercenaries does. We also have a little bit better of a consistent map rotation screen. So last time, a lot of times in the 0.40 version, we had a lot of issues with map rotation. This actually fixed a lot of that, and we actually have our 3 maps in here that you can see, and they actually kind of show off nice, little thumbnails about what they are with a little bit of a system in there, and then there's a default, I don't know what this is, image on there for anything that's being added. And eventually we'd like to add the ability to actually upload your own custom maps, hopefully through like Steamworks or something like that, and be able to create custom servers with custom maps and all that kind of information, which is another reason why we switched over in the 5.0 version, because a lot of those marketplace assets and other things like that get tricky to redistribute through modding, so we kind of had to eliminate all that and make it all custom, so that when we release the editor, you can actually just work on the project without any legal stuff kind of getting in the way, because everything's actually being released by us, from us. So that's pretty nice. Outside of that, we have a couple other maps. So we have Skyline is kind of being redone. You can see here, if I switch over to the block out, because it's a little easier to see, we kind of have a new layout for Skyline. A lot of this is in the block out phase. We haven't quite finished it, so if I'm in the textured mode, you can see way more of it's just in the block out phase than Cargo. Cargo is kind of getting that nice polished pass. But we have all these things here, and basically we have new version of Skyline coming through. A lot of this is to be built on over the next couple months while we're polishing things, but you can see we have much better models as well. Information and stuff like that still being kind of worked out, but like for example, these I like this room here. This room is just a bunch of tarps and stuff like that as we're kind of building up as they're building up the skyscraper. The system itself, or the layers themselves, are basically going to be more polished. So the bottom layer is going to be more like an office feel, where they've actually started putting in furniture and stuff, and then the second layer they're kind of in the painting and drywalling phase, and then the third one that's still like the cinder blocks and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be 3 distinct levels basically within the map, and then as you get to the roof, it's just a skeleton because they haven't gone there quite yet. So pretty excited for that new map. Then we also have our Silo. Silo's kind of, if I turn off the shelling, Silo is really just a concept at the moment with the current model phase. So there is a block out model, but the actual phase to actually be creating, if I come in here, you can see, lighting's a little dark, but you can see in here that we're just starting to design some nice props, and everything feels more consistent because it's actually models designed specifically for our map idea, rather than us trying to kind of push in a marketplace asset into something that we want. So a little bit of scaling reference there. So that'll be nice. So if I switch over on the weapon side, this is, part of the big update we've been working on. So if I switch over into here is our model. This is completely custom. If I turn off our controls, you can see we have a lot of detail in here now. We got things actually carved in. We have all kinds of detail, much better detail than we had before. We have all sorts of layers that we can then control. So if I turn on my controls, I can actually come in here and I can actually modify the gun stock, for example. So push that in and out for animation. I have the lever right there, which is for the shells. I'm able to slide back the system here. So I was able to build all this out with nice controls, and then I actually have a master control as well that if I rotate, I can actually rotate this and then still be able without any trouble. On all the old ones, they didn't even have moving parts, but they were not rigged in a way that made animating them easy. I basically just had to assume they were just a static model and then kind of work my way from there. Now I kind of can have some fun with the animations, and you can actually see, there's some internal parts and stuff even just for added finesse. We have at least 3 models pretty much ready to go, or 4 I think. So we have the shotgun, we have the M16. Here's our M16. This is going to be like a 3-burst round rifle, so that will kind of be more powerful than other things, but it won't be much of a spray weapon as the other ones you kind of have to do in bursts. I can come in here, I can do the weapon switches, and I can toggle the fire selection. Weird little tiny things like that, but they just kind of add a lot of immersion. Able to pull back. You can see if I flip this open, this is actually controlling the other control, which is moving that, but then I can come in here and I can actually reset that guy. I can actually move this independently as well for the animations. So nice little details like that. Switch over to the MP5. MP5 actually has a texture applied to it, not final by any means. It's just kind of a base coloring to see what kind of color grade I want to do. But again, I can come in here, I can move. This is actually limiting me, so no matter how far I try to rotate it, it'll actually prevent me from going over, which again, that's nice because then I don't have to hand key anything. I have some blend spaces that I can just drag this slider in the top right here and be able to kind of get into a proper position, and that works regardless of what angle you're in, because in the old ones I had to hand key it all, and that was just kind of a pain. So I built some proper rig controls, which that just took a while to do. And I think the last one that I have is just the M9, which is the first sidearm, and again, same thing. I can come in here and I can push the slide all the way back, and then I can animate it so when you run out of ammo, it's actually saying, hey, here's the slide, and then actually tell the animation blueprint to hold that position, where before it was really just, it was just a static model that had a little fireball coming out of it. But again, pretty nice. If I come in here, you can actually see the clip going in and out. Probably won't really see that a ton, but the first person animations will definitely feel much more improved from all that. In addition to that, I also have better models for our high poly characters. I haven't really baked them down properly. I've kind of done some basic sketching on some of the characters, but if we load up here, thank you, go away, and come into my recent, and I can just go into our creature, for example. And if I go into our subtools, I want to turn on everything except for that guy. And slide up so I can see this a little bit better. Go ahead and turn on normal rotation here, just for a little ease. And so we got some nice high quality creature sculpt in here. I just got to sort of baking it down and creating a nice actual in-game model. We kind of have, a rough one in there, but a lot more detail. Creatures actually, one of the models I'm actually really happy with the results of for so far. Nice kind of creature in here, and then inside here we can go into our shadow team. And the shadow team is basically going to be the mercenary style, so you can see they are much more mercenary, like very militant Still kind of going with the mask to kind of cover up the faces, but then everything's kind of a hard edge, sharp angles, a lot more aggressive looking than you find the containment team in here. So they're going to turn out pretty nice. Got to finish them up. They're kind of blocked out now, and I just need to start adding all the detail. And then we have our containment member, and they are the least finished out of the group. You can see they're very blocky still. The boots have no detail on them. The knee pads and cylinders that are hanging off their belts are just, literally a cylinder. But they are going to be, like I said, a much more containment feeling, so they're kind of in a hazmat suit all the way around, where the shadow team kind of just has the mask and then open skin kind of sort of look. So pretty nice there. So I think that's really about it. Everything else is kind of underway. We have all sorts of new features that we're going to be offering, which is going to be really great. We're hoping to open up the new version to modding. We're hoping to get on either Steam or Epic Games here, or Epic Launcher, I guess you could say. Outside of that, we're really just kind of finishing up the build that we have, polishing it, and then we're hoping to get that out as a, probably a private beta to test the new fundamental base that we rebuilt everything on. But that is it for now.